being the kind of dads that you should be. And so I said, well, just go with your and the band's favorites. So I guess we can say a lot of those songs are maybe the band's favorite songs that we sang this morning. We're going to talk about dads. And, this morning, Bob Chauncey sent me a picture, and the picture didn't come through, but he asked me about something my time at A&M. He said, "Do you ever get in trouble for this?" And I asked him what it meant, and when he told me, I said, "Actually, no, I never did." And what it was about was with the uniform that you wear in the Corps. One of the things that you have to do is you have to make a straight line between the shirt, we have button shirts, and your belt and your buckle. My dad taught me that. That was one thing when I got to A&M that I was like, dude, I can do that. Because my dad always taught me that's what you check. When you get dressed, when you put your shirt on, you make sure that everything lines up. I was like, okay, I didn't realize my dad, he taught me such important lessons that I got there, and all of my buddies, they'd come out of their room and their shirt would be way over here and all of that, and they would get in trouble. I never got in trouble for that. I got in trouble for a lot of other stuff. Like my brass wasn't shiny enough and all of that stuff, but I never did get in trouble because my gig line was not in line. And so, Dad, thank you for teaching me that. Again, he probably never realized that was such an important lesson. My tie also, even though I don't wear a tie now, my tie, when we had to wear a tie on our uniform, mine was always, actually, I tied all of my buddies' ties. They would all come to me because they did not know. And my dad is the one who taught me how to do that tie, and so I'd tie mine and tied all of my buddies, and my buddies left their tie from the time we were freshmen until the time that they graduated as a senior. It never came undone because they want to make sure they never had to mess with that again. Dads, we teach our kids a lot of important lessons. Those are lessons that our kids need to learn, but there's lessons that are even more important. We're going to talk today about the importance of dads. Moms, I'm not saying that you're not important, because we all know you are. You ever watch a football game and they put a camera on the football player or basketball player or whatever? Who do they always say hi to? Mom. It's always, "Love you, Mom." Very seldom does the guy say, "Hi, Dad, love you, Dad." Moms get all the recognition. And Mother's Day, as a staff, we talk about planning stuff. When it comes to Mother's Day, we're like, nothing. We don't plan anything outside of worship and maybe making sure moms have a rose and, giving them that. Man, we don't plan anything else on Mom's Day. Dad's Day, we actually sometimes talk about planning something. There's something wrong with that. Dads, you're important. Let me tell you how important. Let me give you some statistics. In 2010, 66% of children ages 0 to 17 lived with two married parents. That was down from 77% in 1980. In 2010, 23% of children who live with only their mothers. 3% live with only their fathers, and 4% live with neither of their parents. Children in father-absent homes are 5 times more likely to be poor. In 2002, 7.8% of children in married couple families were living in poverty, compared to 38.4% of children in female householder families. A child with a non-resident father is 54% more likely to be poorer than his or her father. A study of 109 juvenile offenders indicated that family structure significantly predicts delinquency. A study of 13,986 women in prison showed that more than half grew up without their father. 42% grew up in a single mother household, and 16% lived with neither parent. Even after controlling for community context, there is significantly more drug use among children who do not live with their mother and father. Youth are more at risk of first substance abuse without a highly involved father. Each unit increase in father involvement is associated with a 1% reduction in substance abuse. Living in an intact family also decreases the risk of first substance abuse. Compared to living with both parents, living in a single-parent home doubles the risk, or living in a single-parent home doubles the risk that a child will suffer physical, emotional, or educational neglect. Fatherless children are twice as likely to drop out of school. Kind of scary, isn't it? Children who do not grow up with a father that is involved significantly in their life tend to be more promiscuous. They tend to use alcohol and drugs more. They tend to drop out of school more. All of the bad things that you don't want for your kids to participate in and be a part of, there's an easy way to make sure that that does happen. There's an easy way to give your kids a much better shot of doing all those bad things. Dad, drop out of the family. Not just divorce mom and move away, but just emotionally drop out of the family. If you want your kids to have all of those negatives, dads, it's about all you got to do. Kind of scary, isn't it? Dads are hugely important. I want to read to you from 1 Samuel chapter 2. We're going to read about a man named Eli. And all indications are that Eli was a godly man. It was a faithful man. Eli is actually the one that, for the most part, we would say raised the prophet Samuel. Because Samuel was brought and was left with Eli, and Eli was the priest who trained Samuel growing up. And so, obviously, he did something really good to train this man who became one of the greatest prophets of the Bible. But look at verse 12. It says, this is chapter 2. Eli's sons were scoundrels. They had no regard for the Lord. Now it was a practice of the priests that whenever any of the people offered a sacrifice, the priest's servant would come with a 3-pronged fork in his hand while the meat was being boiled, and would plunge the fork into the pot or kettle or cauldron. Whatever the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. It's not how they're supposed to do it. These were Eli's sons that were doing that. Then skip down to verse 27. Now a man of God came to Eli and said to him, "This is what the Lord says. Did I not clearly reveal myself to your ancestors' family when they were in Egypt under Pharaoh? I chose your ancestor out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to go up to my altar, to burn incense, and to wear an ephod in my presence. I also gave your ancestors' family all the food offerings presented by the Israelites. Why do you scorn my sacrifice and dwelling and offering that I prescribed for my dwelling? Why do you honor your sons more than me by fattening yourselves on the choice parts of every offering made by my people Israel? Therefore the Lord, the God of Israel, declares, I promised that members of your families would minister before me forever. But now the Lord declares, far be it from me. Those who honor me I will honor, but those who despise me will be disdained. The time is coming when I will cut short your strength and the strength of your priestly house, so that no one in it will reach old age, and you will see distress in my dwelling. Although good will be done to Israel, no one in your family line will ever reach old age. Every one of you that I do not cut off from serving at my altar, I will spare only to destroy your sight and sap your strength, and all your descendants will die in the prime of life. And what happens to your 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, will be a sign to you. They will both die on the same day." Who was Eli? Eli was a priest of God before the rise of the monarchy in Israel. Again, I said he's the man who trained the prophet Samuel, taught Samuel how to be a man of God. And so he did some great things. And by all indications, Eli was a good and honorable man. Eli was a faithful priest. He performed his duties well. He did the job right. He tried to teach the people about God. He instructed them. He trained them. And in everything we look at him, we go, man, Eli was good. He was godly. He was the kind of man that we would want to have as a priest. But his sons were evil to the core. So I want to ask us a question. What happened to Eli's sons? A few verses that we didn't read and we skipped there. It shows Eli speaking to his sons about their wickedness. Eli goes to his sons and he says, what is this I hear that you're doing? Sons, this is not right. This is not the way that you're supposed to be. You're not doing it the way that God has commanded us. And he says, you've got to change. He threatens harsh correctives, but he fails to follow through. He threatens harsh correctives, but he fails to follow through. No wonder, why did Eli fail to follow through? Maybe it was because he was so busy doing God's work outside of the home that he forgot to do God's work inside the home. Guys, men, don't be so busy making a life. Don't be so busy making money for your kids that you forget to teach them, to be with them, to develop them. Read this story. A young man was to be sentenced to the penitentiary. The judge had known him from childhood, for he was well acquainted with his father, a famous legal scholar, and the author of an exhaustive study entitled The Law of Trusts. Do you remember your father? Asked the magistrate. I remember him well, Your Honor, came the reply. Then, trying to probe the offender's conscience, the judge said, as you are about to be sentenced, and as you think of your wonderful dad, what do you remember most clearly about him? There was a pause. Then the judge received an answer he had not expected. I remember when I went to him for advice. He looked up at me from the book he was writing and said, run along, boy, I'm busy. When I went to him for companionship, he turned me away, saying, run along, son, this book must be finished. Your Honor, you remember him as a great lawyer. I remember him as a lost friend. The magistrate muttered to himself, alas, finished the book, but lost the boy. Eli's sons paid a terrible price for their father's neglect. Eli's sons paid a terrible price, not because their dad was a priest. They paid a terrible price not because their dad did great things for God. They paid a terrible price because their dad didn't take the time at home and didn't build up the family and teach the family, lead the family. Men, you need to ask yourself a question. Will your children pay a terrible price for your neglect? Will your children pay a terrible price for your neglect? So what can you do? You may hear this and you may think, man, okay, Graham, what do I do? Well, let me give you some suggestions. Number one, be there. Really there. And I want to tell you, as I'm saying these to you, I got one finger pointed at you. Y'all know the deal. I got three pointed back at me. I am not standing up here saying that I am perfect in any of this, because I'm not. This is hitting me as I looked over this week and started thinking about it and praying about it. And man, I just started going, ooh. Be there. Be really there. Spend time with your kids. Attend their activities. And I'm serious, guys. Their activities may not be what you would enjoy. I've told stories about my dad many times. My dad does not like football. Okay, football is not his sport. My dad really knows nothing about football. When I was growing up and I played football, I would look up in the stands and I would see my dad sitting in the stands. Many times he'd still have his Sears work shirt on, and he'd be holding a bag of McDonald's. And my dad don't even like McDonald's either, but you can get it quick. Mom would pick him up. They would drive to wherever my game was. It didn't matter if my game was in Baum or at Sanger. He'd be there. And my dad had no idea who was on defense and who was on offense. And he could care less. But he was there. And you know what? Every time I would look up in the stands, I knew my dad would be there. Dads, one of the things you can do is attend their activities. I'm not a big drama guy. I spent yesterday watching one-act plays. If my son was not in a one-act play, I probably wouldn't have gone. But you know what? It was a great day. Why? Because it's something that my son loves. And it's something that I can go and I can be there. Dads, carve the time. Attend their activities. Get to know their friends. Know who they are. Know when you pass them on the street that you can stop and talk to them and ask them how they're doing, and they would know who you are. And next one, listen. Notice I put it in all caps. Guys, you have got to listen. Stop and really listen to what they say. The next one. Pray for and with them. Pray for your kids. Pray for your kids' friends. Pray for who is going to be the spouse of your children. This July, I'm adding a son-in-law to my family. And I told him a while back, I said, Garrett, I've been praying for you for 21 years. And he kind of looked at me because I don't think he had quite hit 21 yet. And he looked at me and he was like, what? And I said, Garrett, I didn't know who you were until like a year ago. I said, but I've been praying for you for 21 years. Why am I praying for him? Because he's the man that's going to marry my daughter. You pray for them. Pray for your kids. The only way you can pray for them is if you know what's going on in their life, you know what they're struggling with, you know what they're getting excited about. Take the time to pray for and with them. Let's go to the next slide. The rest of these. Play with them. If you have little daughters and they want to play Barbie, guess what, big tough dad? Roll up the sleeves and get the Barbie dolls out. I'll admit, I hated playing Barbies. But there are probably pictures of me playing Barbies because my daughter wanted to play Barbies. I played a lot of Legos. I stepped on a lot of Legos. Why did I do that? Because my son liked to play with Legos. Play with your kids. Read with them. You want to have kids that read? There's an easy way to make sure that happens. Read with them. And as my kids were growing up, I read a lot with them. Now that was easy for me because I love to read. So that my problem is probably that I read too much. But my kids love to read. They read well. And a lot of it is because every night I'd lay in their beds with them and read. We'd read long books, short books, and everything in between. Read with your kids. They're going to come to an age where they don't really want you to lay in a bed and read with them anymore. It's kind of a bummer when that happens. But until then, keep reading with them. Serve with them. Does not matter what age they are. They can learn about serving God. And the best way for them to learn about serving God is to serve with you. When we have a mission activity here at the church, bring your kids. I don't care if they're 2 years old or 20 years old. Bring your kids. Will you be as effective that day in working? Probably not. If your child is 2, there's probably going to be some things. We're not going to hand you a power tools. So you probably won't be as effective that day. But you're going to teach your kids. You're going to show them a lesson. You're going to give them an example that they will never forget. Serve with them. Go with them to church. You know, the third largest attended service of the year in most churches? You've got the first 2 are Christmas Eve and Easter. What is the third most attended service day in a church typically?
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day. That's awesome, right? Here's something that's sad. What is one of the lowest attended days in church? It's Father's Day. Guys, that's a condemnation of us. You know, we started Bill a few weeks back. I talked with the lady that's leading our women's Bible study. And she was asking the ladies that were in her group, most of them, she's saying, so what made you come and be a part of this class? She said, Grant, she said, I was a little upset at first because none of them said because she was teaching. And she said, there was only like 1 or 2 that said, yeah, I'm here because of this particular study that you were doing. But they really wanted to be a part of that particular study. You know what the number 1 answer was? My husband was coming. They came because their husband was coming on Sunday night. And the wife said, Dad's going? We're all going. Dads, go with your children to church. Get them in church. And the last one, love their mother. And you want your kids to grow up and be the kind of parents and husbands and wives that you want them to be, then show them how to do it. Love their mom. Treat their mom like royalty. You know, when my daughter started dating, one of the things I would tell the guys that she goes out with is when she's on a date, my daughter's hand should never have to touch a door. She should never have to touch a door handle. Why? Because that's just a sign of respect and love that you can show. And so I would tell them, hey, you never have to do that. Now, of course, my daughter pointed out one time, I got in the car and didn't open my wife's door. We were going out. And I was like, oh, yeah, I got the refund back at me. You want your daughter to marry a man who is going to love her and cherish her and treat her the way that Christ says, as Paul says, that we should love our wives as Christ loved the church. You want that to happen? The best thing you can do for your child, for your daughter, is to do that for her mom. Love her mom that way. And when she grows up, that's the kind of man she's going to pick. Why? Because that's just what is normal for her. But treat her mom badly, chances are your daughter is going to pick a boy that will treat her badly. Love their mom. Dads, we have an incredibly huge responsibility. None of us are worthy of the calling of being a dad. None of us are as good as we ought to be, and I am not. On your connection card, I put 2 things there. The first is, I will begin a weekly family devotional. Now, I'm going to tell you, we used to do this. When my kids were little, we did it every night. Man, we got busy. And that's an excuse. Folks, that's nothing but an excuse. We got busy, and we let it slide. My family is going to restart. I found something, a book that just came out that my son is interested in, apologetics. So we are going to start reading a book on apologetics and talking about it once a week. We're going to read a chapter a week. And Zach and I have already talked about it. If both of us have a book, I'll have to read to my wife or give it to her and she can read my copy. But we're going to read it every week. We'll read a chapter. And then we're going to sit down and we're going to have a family devotional just using that book. It goes back to Scripture. So we're going to be using Scripture to do that. Dads, if you got little ones, don't crack out the King James Bible and start reading Leviticus to them. Okay? It's not going to go well. If you've got little ones, go find a children's Bible. And there is a ton of different versions. Find the one that fits with the age of your children. Read a story and pray. It's really not that difficult. Some of you may say, man, I would have no idea how to teach my kids and do a Bible study with my kids. You're really not doing a Bible study with your kids. You're reading the Scripture and you're praying. Man, I encourage you, dads, take that responsibility. Step up and start doing it. When my kids were small, we did it as part of our bedtime routine. It just fit, it worked. Take the step and do it. And I want to just tell you, if you mark on here this week that you're going to begin a family devotional weekly, I'm going to ask Tanya to make sure and give me those names, and I'm going to be praying for you. We'll pray for you when we have staff meeting in the morning. We'll be praying for those of you guys that say, hey, we're going to do this. Because the first time you do it, it's probably not going to go very well. Okay? Just be honest with you. Probably not, especially if you got teenagers, and you say, we're going to sit down and have this. The first time, it probably is not going to go all that well. It might not even go that well the second time you do it. Or the third time. Or the fourth time. But it will come a time when it will. And your kids will pick it up and they will understand the importance of it. And they will start to look forward to it. Now I want to encourage you, dads, do it. And start having a family devotion. If you have questions about how to do it, give me a call. I'd love to sit down and talk with you about it. If you struggle and you want to quit after the first time, call me. Or call Ryan. I know Ryan would love to talk with you. If you got kids in teenage years, in a youth group, I know Ryan would love to sit down and talk with you and give you some resources. Man, do it. Take the plunge. Commit to doing it. Make it your lit thing. Commit to doing it until Easter. That every week I'm going to have a family devotional and just see if it's not something that benefits your entire family. All right, you hear that?
It's on the wall, and it's short, it's great.
So if you're looking for a resource, Ryan just said, down on our info wall, just as you go out these doors, down the hallway, before you get to the gym, before you go into the gym area, there is a wall up there. There's a Lent devotional. So if your family wants to start one, you want to start a family devotional, we've already got a resource for you. Pick it up. It said it's short. It's easy to do. It'll tell you. Great thing, it'll tell you, read this, say this, pray. Easy to do. Guys, take advantage of it. Take advantage of the resources we have. Folks, that's why we have a church. One of the reasons we have a church is we have these resources that we can provide to help you to teach your kids. As we come to a time of invitation, this is one of those sermons where it's kind of hard to really do a come to Jesus invitation. This is what I'm going to ask you. Dads, if what I've said today has made you realize that you've got some work to do, then I'm going to ask you to come and pray. You may be saying, I'm doing pretty good, but I got a couple things I need to work on. Come down, me, John, Ryan are going to be standing here. We would love to just say a quick prayer with you. Ask God to give you wisdom and strength in taking those steps. Let's pray together. Our Father in heaven, Lord, we thank you for your love and your mercy. And Father, I pray that as we have this time of invitation, Lord, I pray that you would challenge each of the men that are in this building today. Father, that you would challenge them to be the dads that you want them to be. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Let's stand together.